Okay, so we'll begin with first band and tribe, family and household. Now, what surprises me is why should you have difficulty with something like this also? So, in socio-cultural, first your static must be right. This is a very static question. There is no dynamic content here, no scope for high analysis also. So, for something like this, get your basics right. Why is the basic a problem? For example, when you write band and tribe, these are the clear definitions. Both of them you can begin with first. Your intro, you can start with element service. Element service classified the political systems in simple societies into 4 categories: band, tribe, chiefdom and state. And then you define band. This is the definition for band. What is band? So simplest political organization where the local group or band is the largest territorial group in the society. The local group in band societies is also politically autonomous. For definitions, whenever you are in dilemma, just take the definition given in Ember and Ember for socio-cultural, because that is taken generally as the authentic or more accepted definition. I'll share the PPT, don't worry. So, try to take definition from Ember and Ember as much as possible. Similarly, and then when you write about band, you have to, if it's possible, it will be good if you can also draw this diagram. We have largely 4 systems. Some are called uncentralized, others are called centralized. Uncentralized includes bands and tribes. Centralized includes chiefdoms and state. That's it. Draw this, start with element service, draw this diagram, and then for band, write in points. Try to take the heading, you are not putting subheadings. Why? So, see, we are not here to write like Hindu editors, wherein you write in complex paragraphs and hope that examiner reads. Let us look at the simple math. An examiner gets something like, in the best case, 15 minutes per your script. That's it. If it is APPSC, it is lesser, because they all have targets. You have to finish so many number of scripts in per day. They generally give them a bundle. Usually you are given a bundle of 40 or 50 depending on the stress in which the commission is, and you are asked to finish it for that day. First week they give lesser script so that you get used to. Second week onwards the script load increases. They are given a bundle. And you have to finish it by end of the day. So if you finish it in 8 hours, you go home early. If you take 10 hours, you go after finishing that only. Now as an examiner, what will you do? Will you want to devote your time to the candidate, read those boring answers, get headache at the end of the day and sit for 10 hours, or finish by 8 hours and go? And they are all paid measly sums of money. They are not, at least the evaluators we pay are better. We pay them more than what they will pay. So they don't have much incentive, except that they come here because coming to UPSC is a good resume point for them. Academically, if they want to get promotion in the university, because most of them are assistant professors or degree college professors. So if they have gone to UPSC interview, it's like some kind of a badge of honor which they can use to get promotion or get reputation among colleagues. So that's the mindset with the evaluator comes. They don't come with extraordinary mindset, which means they don't have time. 15 minutes and you have 20 answers at less than a minute per question. Which means they're just scanning. They don't have time to read everything. So what should your job be? And trust me, I've talked to Shruti also. She got one of the highest scores in mains in the recent years. Shruti Sharma, last year's first ranker. Even her answers, if you look at them, they're not very deep or extraordinary. They get all the basics right, that's all. So our job must be to aim for getting all the basics right in different dimensions. So what do we mean by basics? If you can get the basics right, that is the only thing that you can aim for, given the scope of the examination. The examination scope is extraordinarily vast. It is not possible to do a PhD thesis. So all you can do is get the basics right and not complicate it. In fact, we tested this also. So when Sanjana madam, she had foundation course, you have to write 2 essays. So this time I took up the job of writing that essay because they had hectic schedule. I wrote 2 essays. One is very thoroughly researched because the essay itself is called research essay. So I read a lot of journals from Harvard Business Review, Economic Political Weekly, and wrote this. Another essay was given, a human rights essay. This was given at short notice and asked to submit. Nobody knew they have to write. So I wrote this in like 2 days' time and submitted. We thought maybe maximum this essay will get good recognition. But ends up this essay was not even recognized. This essay got first prize in the entire foundation course. I was surprised too. When I went back and read after the result, I realized this essay was too technical with a lot of journals, quotations, charts and data. When I read it back, I realized I had complicated it. This, on the other hand, had multiple subheadings, language is simple, and the content is familiar. And this was picked. If I have to award myself, I would have awarded this, not this. So why? Because they are handling 450 essays and they must finish the evaluation in 20 days. Our position is quite similar. So it is not about how well you research and write. It's about the system. So any system where there are huge numbers will be like this only. It is not just about UPSC. Any system where there are huge number of scripts to be evaluated and you have few limited people with limited time, they will not pay attention to extraordinary detail. So your job must be to get the basics. What are basics? First, structure. Students lack this in the answer. Your answers must have very good structure. So when I look at the answer, there must be some intro. There must be 1, 2, 3 headings. And under each heading, 1, 2, 3 points. Simple. So as I read the headings, I know what you're going to write. And if possible, in each point, there must be a keyword underlined. So when I look at these words, it is clear to me what you wrote. And my job of evaluation must be done in 20 seconds for a 10 marker. How do I cut in 20 seconds? Not by reading every line in detail. When I can look at the headings, keywords, the diagram or an example, and I get an idea of what you have written. And trust me, if you're correcting almost 1000, each evaluator, for example, Anthro, around 1200 people write. They will have 4 or 5 evaluators. Each person evaluates 400 scripts or so. So after evaluating 50 scripts, you know the story. And everybody is writing more or less similar. The person who writes it most visibly clear, without confusion and some basic neatness, gets the marks. That's all. There is no magic here. So please aim for this. And if you aim for this in all areas of the syllabus, across both the papers, you will end up with a good score. And once you get the structure right, then they will also look for keywords, especially in paper 1. Keywords, examples, diagrams, thinkers. The easiest thing that you can do is structure, because structure gets you the highest benefit compared to anything else. Structure and keywords are the easiest to implement. So when you are reading also, please read with this in mind. And another problem is, sometimes when I say points, students write like they are writing a PPT. That is, you just mention keywords, 2 lines. Each sentence will have 2 words. That's also not good. A point must be a complete sentence, but simple and short sentence. Don't write 3 words and leave. There was another student in first test. In fact, this was the best script. I'll post on the group today. He wrote like that in few answers. Just 3 words in 1 sentence. That's like a PPT that we make in classroom. So it should not be like that as well. So make sure you aim for this across all the areas. Clear? No extraordinary magic. So first question, band and tribe. You could have begun with element service and then draw this diagram. Next, subheading, band. Under band, at least 6 points. What is the population now? For example, if you don't know much content, this table, if you can just write this table, it is more or less sufficient. What is band? Local group. Leadership is informal. No full-time officials. They are largely hunter-gathering economy. In fact, just look at this table, it's better. So if you look at any political system, you can analyze it in 4 levels. First, in terms of what's the population size? What's the nature of government? Is it egalitarian? Do they have informal or formal mechanisms? Is it centralized or uncentralized? Next, what is their economy? Next, socially, do they have stratification or not? So, analyze a political system like band, tribe, chiefdom or state in terms of 4 dimensions. The general, people, their density. Next, the very nature of political system. Third, the economy of the system. Fourth, the kind of society in which it is. Society includes stratification, inequalities and complexity. So, this table and this table should be able to help you understand any system, band, tribe, chiefdom and state. That's it. No big deal in the answer. And elaborate on each one of this. And an example. In socio-cultural, you have to write examples. That's one thing that is missing across scripts. So band, you can write any hunting gathering society. The Kung are best example of band. Next, tribe, there is a problem. Because students have a problem in defining tribe properly. Someone wrote, tribe is agricultural. No, tribe is horticulture or pastoral. And tribe is a temporary formation. It is not a permanent formation. Tribe is a temporary formation, meaning that, just look at this definition. It's a kind of political organization in which local communities are mostly autonomous. It's like different bands exist. In band, there are different bands living in a region, just that there is no way in which a band can connect with another band. In tribe, you have different bands, but they can come together temporarily if there is a need. So bands have no way of uniting. Tribe has a way of uniting on a temporary basis. The word temporary is most important. So, but there are kin groups or associations that can temporarily integrate a number of local groups into a larger unit. And then they disintegrate after the, let's say, this band is being attacked by an outside group, this village. Then all the other 3 will unite with the 4th one and they'll collectively face the threat. Now, once the threat is defeated, they'll again go back to living autonomously. They won't interact on a day-to-day basis together. That is tribe. In band, even if one of them is attacked, the others won't come to its rescue. That's it. So clear what is band and what is tribe. So, and then you add these features, the nature of the economy, some examples, and the kind of other features. Socially, it is multi-local, it is still informal leadership, they have small communities with low density, they have egalitarianism and mostly reciprocity. That's it. So that's how you talk about band and tribe. Clear? Next question is family and household. This is another question that is there in syllabus, and I think they asked this question last year also in paper 1. Naveen, question paper amma. So basically, what is family and household? Where does the difference come? Family is considered as a social unit based on kinship, whereas household is a dwelling or residential unit. Household, your hostel is a household. If you are living in a hotel, it's a household. But do all members of a household have to be family members? Not necessary. So family What is the basis? Kinship and a emotional bond. For household, it is just the fact that they are dwelling together. So emotional attachment is the core feature of family and commensality is a characteristic of household. But why does this, and you can draw this table if you want to make a difference between household in different sense. So you can have, for instance, different families but same household when you have landlords, tenants, hostels, hotels. Or you can have houseless households, slums or payment dwellers. They are all living together but they have no house but they are still a household. Then you have institutionalized households like hostels and hotels or dormitories. Or sometimes same family but different households. Like you are here, your sister is in Bangalore, your parents are living in Visakhapatnam. One family but having different households. And then why does this household concept become prominent? Household concept is becoming prominent because of something called serial monogamy. Because of increasing divorce rate, there is breakdown of marriage, isn't it? We have breakdown of marriage. Because of breakdown of marriage, what is happening is you have things like step families and all that. So in the same household, you can have different families or one family can be living across multiple households. That's the reason why household concept is becoming popular because of the rise of serial monogamy. So let's say a couple get divorced and split. Now one child is with one mother, other child is with father. The same family is now living in two households and each of them are married again. So here one family unit is now spread across multiple households. That's the reason why household is becoming prominent. In India, whenever you write household concept, you have to mention A.M. Shah. This we don't discuss very much in Anthro because household is not an important concept, but now they are asking you to prepare for this. A.M. Shah is a very big scholar in sociology. So A.M. Shah, he said that we have to make a difference between household and family. Family can be joint or nuclear, whereas household can be simple or complex. And he studied household across various cities in Gujarat. So why again this becomes famous? Because of globalization, migration, urbanization and all this. So members of a family need not live in the same household, and household also undergoes fusion and fission. And this concept of household was necessary in India because in India many felt joint families in villages are breaking and eventually they are giving rise to nuclear family. That was a very simple view. A.M. Shah said that is not so. A.M. Shah said in India it is not that joint families are becoming increasingly nuclear. He said family has what is called as a life cycle. It can be nuclear, then become joint. It can again become nuclear. Let's say there was your grandparents. They had 3 children. They were all joint family. Now each of them got married and left. Then the families became nuclear. Now you or your parents have you are living with them, you get married and you have children. All of you are living in the same household. Then what does the family become again? Joint. Now after a while, your children went and settled in Bangalore. So you go and live with them, leaving your parents in Hyderabad. Then once again family shifts to becoming nuclear. So he said families undergo fusion and fission depending on the circumstances. We cannot uniformly say that once we had joint families in villages and now all of them became nuclear. That cannot be said. In fact, we can draw this diagram where joint families can regress due to death, divorce or out marriage and become a nuclear family. A nuclear family can progress through birth, adoption and in marriage to become a joint family. To differentiate this, he said household is necessary as a concept. And I.P. Desai also discussed the same thing in his study in Madras, where he talks about family of orientation and family of emotional bond. So whenever we discuss household, differentiate them definition wise, talk about Anthropology and serial monogamy, and then discuss the Indian scenario and talk about life cycle of a family and how household helps us understand this change in family from joint to nuclear to once again joint based on fusion and fission depending on the needs of life. Next question is lineage and clan. This is a very straightforward question, but what is disappointing is that you should write the intro properly here. In this question, how do you begin the introduction for lineage and clan? It's a very simple question. Say that all of these are first. What are they? UDGs. Lineage and clan are the different ways of having unilineal descent groups, and there are 4 unilineal descent groups, and draw a diagram. Show this is moiety, phratry, clan, and then lastly lineage. That's it. And then draw a table for lineage and clan. Please, whenever you are comparing, use table. And here, definitionally, like I said, keywords. In social science like anthropology, conceptual clarity is demonstrated through good use of keywords. So whenever we say lineage, you should always, the word known ancestor must come. It's a group which affiliates relations based on known ancestor. When you say clan, it is unknown ancestor. Some of you use the words like mythical ancestor and all of that, but the right word is unknown. And because of this, in lineage we have demonstrated descent. Here we have stipulated. You imagine descent. You don't demonstrate descent. And clans have totems. That's a unique feature. Lineage has no such feature. But lineage can have everyday economic and political functions. Clans don't have economic functions because members of a clan don't live together because they are too large. Lineage members can own property together. They may help each other in cultivating land or in clearing forest, or they may help each other in mobilizing bride price and so on. But clan members do not have the same kind of economic orientation because they are too many and they are dispersed in a large region. So lineage members live together, clan members may not live together. Lineages have headmen, clans may not always have headmen. And disputes in lineages have peaceful resolution, but clans may involve non-violent resolution. That's it. So, next, this is tricky. Status and role. This I think most of you, the content was subpar. So, this is again a question that we can write well from sociology. So, unfortunately, one way in which they are making optionals difficult is by pushing the optional towards a sister optional. Sociology is being pushed towards anthropology. Anthropology is being pushed towards sociology. In sociology, the number of tribal questions are increasing. In anthropology, the number of caste and society questions are increasing. Likewise, political science is being pushed more towards philosophy and PubAd. PubAd is being pushed more towards political science. So this is happening across optionals where they are trying to complicate an optional by stretching its boundaries. And when they stretch the boundaries, it spills into the next optional. In this case, sociology. So status and role is a topic that is generally discussed very well in socio, but not discussed very well in India in anthropology. Status and role begins with the whole issue is largely because of structural functionalist school, which was inspired from the work of Emile Durkheim. So this whole concept is a contribution of structural functionalist approach of beginning with Emile Durkheim, and then define status. First, before defining status, both of them are defined in relation to what is called as a social structure. Because structural functionalism is all about structure. So these two concepts are defined in relation to what is called as social structure. And what is social structure? This is defined as, please take this down, social structure. a system of integrated social relations, a system of integrated social relations functioning to maintain the continuity, and stability of the system itself. Continuity and stability of the system itself. That is social structure. So begin with structural functionalist approach, and they are defined in relation to social structure. And within social structure, what is status? Status is a position. Role is a set of behaviors that are expected for a given status. Set of behaviors expected for, you all have question papers? Take one and give to Bharat. I think you both can share this. So both of them are defined in respect to social structure. And when you now write status, Ralph Linton, he classified status into two types. This you wrote but didn't mention Ralph Linton. That is ascribed and achieved. Now define what is ascribed and define what is achieved. Ascribed status comes from, it is assigned without reference to inner abilities. Ascribed status is, there is no reference to inner abilities. Whereas achieved status is ascribed based on a possession of specialized abilities. So that is how you define status. And along with this, if you are interested, if it comes as a 15 marker, not as a 10, then you can add Max Weber. Max Weber also, in addition to structural functionalist, Max Weber also gave a definition for status. In fact, Max Weber is known for his threefold division of society. He says society consists of, we can analyze social inequality in 3 dimensions. One of these is status, party, class and party. These are the 3 words he used to analyze social inequality: status, class and party. And Max Weber defined status in a different way compared to structural functionalists. According to him, status is defined as positive or negative. Status is defined as positive or negative estimation of, honor or prestige. Honor or prestige attributed to persons or groups. Attributed to persons or groups. So by status, he largely means honor or prestige. And he says people can be, inequality can exist based on wealth, power or prestige. Like for example, when you get into IAS, if you do, you will not have money. These days you won't have power also. What all you will have is prestige. So that is what he means by status. And he says in society, status groups, as society is modernizing, status groups become important. People want to associate with members of their own status groups. That is the way in which Max Weber defined a status. And increasingly in anthropology, Weberian idea of status is becoming more prominent than the structural functionalist definition of status. If it is 10 marker, don't write Weber. If it is a 15 marker, please write Weber also. It will give you brownie points because nobody in anthropology will write Weber. Next is role. So how do you go about defining role? Now when you define role, you have to define it as position, behaviors expected from a position, And while defining role, you also say there can be multiple roles that can come with statuses. For example, a person can have the status of husband, a doctor, a father. With each status, you will have different roles that are associated. And the study of roles became popular with the work of one eminent scholar called George Herbert Mead, G.H. Mead. He popularized the study of status, and his approach to studying roles is called as symbolic interactionism. In fact, Erving Goffman, who was asked in 2020, I think, is a part of this approach. This is hardcore sociology. That's why it doesn't make sense to read Erving Goffman. Erving Goffman also, his concept of total institution comes from symbolic interactionist approach. So he popularized role, and he emphasizes on different things, like his research emphasizes on overt role playing and relationship between multiple role expectations. And again, if it is a 15 marker, in role also, you can add additional thinkers. One additional thinker you should definitely add is R.K. Merton, Robert K. Merton. Robert K. Merton said two things. He said, every person has multiple status, and these are called as status sets. Like I told you, doctor, father, husband, son. With each status, you will have different roles. These are called as role sets. As a doctor, you can have different roles. You may be a professor, you may be head of the department, you may also be a junior to somebody, a senior to somebody else, and so on. So within each status, there can be a variety of roles. These are called as role sets. And sometimes these different roles can give rise to role conflicts in society, according to Merton. So this is how you write status and role. On top of it, you can also add Victor Turner if you are interested. Because Victor Turner also he's famous for studying role conflicts that emerge in the form of social drama. During rituals. So the keywords here are social drama and rituals. He also studied role conflicts. So that is how you talk about status and role. Clear? So I gave you enough content for both 10 as well as 15 marker. Next question is horticulture. This is fairly simple. Again, please, basics, like I said, get the definition right. So when we say horticulture, there's this elegant table in Ember and Ember. If you can remember this table for economic anthropology, it makes your job simpler. So when you say horticulture, it is nothing but cultivation of land using simple technologies, where there is no irrigation, fertilizer or plow. That's all. Define horticulture that way, and then horticulture can be of two types. Horticulture is generally of two types. One is of course what we call as shifting cultivation. Second is cultivation of long duration crops. And then get into features of horticulture, right? The various features starting from the habitation size, their population density, the community size, whether they are nomadic. Generally, they are seasonally nomadic. They live in one place, but they keep moving their camp on a seasonal basis. Unlike hunter-gatherers, they are not nomadic on a regular basis. And they have infrequent food shortages, no or minimal trade. And these things like political leadership, inequalities, and specialization just begin to emerge at this stage onwards. You begin to see some kind of inequality, you begin to see some kind of specialization, and you begin to also see emergence of some kind of part-time political officials. That's it. That is horticulture. And you can also talk about, in this kind of questions, even in political anthropology, you can write contemporary relevance. So what is the present situation of horticulturalists? There in paper 2 you will study the scenario of shifting cultivators. Just write that because of the increasing population pressure and deforestation, this kind of livelihood is becoming increasingly unviable, and they're getting absorbed as laborers into agricultural economy. That's it. And now there is also the added pressure of environmental decline. So that extra one way, when you have 30 seconds, your willingness to stretch yourself an extra mile than everybody else around you gives you the extra point. So everybody stops at this. Most don't even get this right. A 25% who go to interview level write this. The final, the 1 to 2% who are willing to stretch themselves to think that extra mile under the pressure of exam, in their examination scenario, and still write something like contemporary relevance or present relevance, you get that extra 1 mark. Because that everybody won't write. It will be rare. So you can just write what is the present scenario of horticultural way of life. Unviable, and hence under pressure from population and environmental decline, it is becoming unviable, so they are getting absorbed into other forms. And write an Indian example of horticultural tribe like Kons or the Baigas, and examples for any mode of livelihood. Please write examples. For horticulture, you can write the tribes of Amazon basin. One of the famous horticultural tribe is the Yanomamo. So please write this as well. We have that here. The Yanomamo is also an example of, and even the Trobriandus that Malinowski studied are also horticultural in their nature. Right? Next is community and association. Now this is also a question. I found many students deficit on this, so I compiled the entire content on this. I'll share the PPT, you can go through the details, but I'll explain it in a nutshell so that we can move faster. Basically, community and association come under what is called as social groups. In society, when we study society, we have two things. One is social institutions, the other is social groups. So, community and association are kind of social groups. What is the definition? For community, the basis is, you can quote McIver and Page, and according to them, they are people who live together, who share a common residence. That's why today we use the word gated community. We don't call it association. The right word is community. So community doesn't mean caste. It's a wrong way of using the word community. Community is not caste as per social sciences. But what is a better example of community? Village. For example, village or a tribal group, they are the best examples of community. Even asylum and prison are communities. So, and then here we have different characteristics of community, that is a definite geographic area, a we feeling or a sense of community feeling, common culture and common life, close relationships, completeness of life, permanent nature, and community is not a legal body. So these are the features of community. And then we have association. What is association? Now when you write both of these, you can always, one way of value addition is present relevance. Another way of value addition is to think in terms of evolution. As we move from pre-industrial societies to modern societies, how are we changing? We are changing from community-based groups to association-based groups. So association is a group of people who share a common interest. We can have different, so what is the defining characteristic of association according to McIver and Page of those who have collective pursuit of same interests. So association can be a walkers association, a cycling association, or those things like, for example, FICCI, ICMR, Rotary Club, YMCA, they are all associations. People who come together because of an interest. Community, which of them is a stronger bond? Community, because you can't change your neighbor even if you don't like him. But let's say you don't like YMCA, Narayanguda, what do? Leave it and join YMCA Secunderabad. Because here, you can easily drop the membership. So, association is characterized by flexibility, whereas community is not so flexible. You buy a house in some place, generally it is difficult to, unless you are a renter, of course, yes. But generally, if you have your own, in village for example, you don't like your neighbors around you, or in a small town, you don't like people around you, but can you do anything about it? You can't really do much. So, community is a stronger identity compared to association. That's why as society is modernizing, people want to shift from community to association. Of course, it is stronger and hence more resilient also. If you are in crisis, these are the first to respond. Association may not respond when you are in grave crisis. And then we talk about the different, I gave more details, you can refer here. We can discuss about the characteristics of association. Here there are about 6 characteristics. It has a common interest, some kind of aims and objectives, and they are because of deliberately formed. Unlike community, you deliberately form a community and they generally have a voluntary nature, and they also have some kind of a charter or a legal backup. Like community doesn't have a charter. So please refer to this content, because I think the answers I saw for both status and role and community and association, the content was very, very weak. Next is segmentary lineage and territoriality. Again, this is a highly conceptual question. Where does segmentary lineage come? In which topic? In which topic does this come? Exactly, it comes in political system. Which political system? In which system does it come? Tribe. So remember, when we defined tribe, what did we say? When we defined tribe, what did we call it? Tribal organization. Here it's a political system where groups which live on their own normally unite on a temporary basis. Now, how do they unite? What is the basis for them to unite? What is the basis for them to unite together when there is a crisis? See, look at this definition. The local communities are mostly autonomous, but there are kin groups or there are associations like age sets. So, tribal system generally has 2 variants. One variant is called segmentary lineage. Another kind of system in tribe is called as, along with segmentary lineage, you have age sets or age grades. Age sets or age grades. These are 2 different systems. One is segmentary lineage, the other is age set or age grades. So, segmentary lineage associates different groups based on lineage links. This is actually the most popular. Occasionally, you can have groups which can unite on the basis of age links. And then explain first, define segmentary lineage as a form of variant of tribal organization, and then you have to, who studied segmentary lineage? Which thinker? Who comes here for segmentary lineage? Evans Pritchard. He studied this in which tribal society? Among the Nuer of Sudan. Another person you can also add is Paul Bohannan. Pritchard is very popular, many will write. If you want to bring in uniqueness, you can also add Paul Bohannan and his study of this among the T of Nigeria. And whenever we talk about segmentary lineage, this diagram must come in your answer. This diagram must be there in your answer, where we show different, so these are all local communities and groups are united by lineage links. So let's say A and B fight, nobody gets involved because they are like brother lineages. But A and C are fighting, then what happens? B will join with A, D will join with C. The issue becomes not just A and C but between 1 and 2. Now A and E are fighting. A, B, C, D side with B, C, D side with A, F, G, H side with E, and the issue becomes between A and B. Now if let's say another tribe attacks A, all of them unite with A, that is 1, and they collectively face the threat. And if you see, they are all living next to each other. In normal situations, A, B, C, D all living next to each other are almost autonomous. They don't interact with each other for dependence. But when there is some common issue, they unite until the issue is resolved and then they go back. This principle is called as complementary opposition. This word must come in your answer when you write for tribe. Complementary opposition. What we discussed, where minor lineages unite together in threat to handle a threat from a larger lineage, is called as complementary opposition. It is a principle by which minor lineages unite to fight with into major lineages to face a common threat. So complementary opposition word has to come. Pritchard must come. Those examples must come, and then you must draw this diagram. Right? That is segmentary lineage. It is a very conceptual question. I am surprised why you had a problem with this. Then the other question is quite easy. Non-verbal communication. Here you say that communication is not just this is territoriality, where lineages living next to each other are uniting when there is a threat. So draw this diagram and show this. This itself is territoriality. So how are you deciding who is close to whom? So here kinship links are matching with territorial neighborhood. A and B are closer kinship wise. But what do you also see, that A and B are also neighbors. The closer two groups are in territorially, the closer they are also in general in terms of kinship bonds. That's it. So this principle is a way in which territorial groups unite. The level of unity also depends on the dispute at hand. So if A and B would have been fighting at one level on one issue, but A and B may unite at a different issue. Like you and your brother may fight on some issue, but if an outsider gets involved, both of you tend to unite. So groups which are quarreling at one level actually unite at another level. So all of this is part of segmentary lineage system. Clear? Next is non-verbal communication. This is again simple, so we'll quickly just talk about different ways in which this can be done. Like you have kinesics, chronemics. We also have paralanguage. Many students missed paralanguage and you also missed silence. Silence is also non-verbal communication. You ask me something I don't like, I will not respond. So silence tells you that maybe you ask something I am not comfortable with. So silence can also be an effective communication, and here you can also add non-human communication. This is again something many students don't think of. You can add non-human communication. Non-human communication can be seen in different, you can take examples of ants, honeybees. This is a prelims question I think this year. You can talk about apes. Apes like Kanzi. How they can communicate, but they need not involve verbal communication. So non-human communication is also part of non-verbal communication. Ants communicate, dogs through odor, smell, honeybees through dance. So you can write all of this to make your answer multi-dimensional. Next is complementary filiation. Again, a very straightforward answer. So these are all marginal topics until now. So complementary filiation, household, descent theories, they were not asked frequently, but even they have identified what you are not preparing. So these kind of marginal areas are being picked up. So I wouldn't be surprised if they ask the question on complementary filiation, because they're like identifying exactly in each chapter what are marginal areas, and let us ask them. Let us place them, and that too in compulsory section 1 and 5, so that you have no way out. They're doing this with marginal area. Generally they're making paper tough in 3 ways from what I've seen. 1, in compulsory they're placing marginal areas that you generally tend to neglect. Second thing that they're doing is place archaeology selectively, because they also know students have an issue with. So archaeology questions don't come together in one question. If there are 3, they'll come in 3 different questions, so that you are forced to pick and write one at least. Third they are doing is ask questions with some sociology basis, like Erving Goffman, Louis Dumont, Homo hierarchicus. These are all coming from socio angle. So these are the 3 general ways in which they are making. In physical anthropology, what they are doing is pushing it more towards applied genetics. These are the general tools they are using to scare you off. And a 5th rare is indirect question. One way in which I can ask you a question on segmentary lineages, ask segmentary lineage. Or if I can ask you Evans, Pritchard and the Nuer, the answer is more or less same. It is just that I asked you example. This was students faced this when the question came on Natufian culture. What is there here? It is a Neolithic site. The question is Neolithic in Middle East. The answer is this. The question is Natufian. The answer is the same thing. Just that you do not know that Natufian is a site in Middle East and it is largely a Neolithic site. So you began to wonder, oh my God, they're asking very tough questions. It's not really so. This is called indirect questioning, where you give the example and ask. Let's say tomorrow they ask you Langnaj. It's a Mesolithic site. If they ask you Bhimbetka. So you don't have to write about this in detail. The unique features of this site will be around 20% at the maximum, 10% to 20%. The rest will be all about the stage at which this site represents. Write about Neolithic, write about Mesolithic. In case you don't know unique findings here, at least you will get some marks, because you wrote about the general stage. Because after all, it's not possible for anybody to remember site-specific details unless you're preparing for a net JRF archaeology. Only they remember at that level, because for them that is the only subject matter, but it is not so. So indirect questioning is another way in which they are trying to trick you. These are the 5 broad ways in which paper is being made difficult. So if you prepare for this, you will not be surprised or shocked when you see any of these tactics being used. Next, chiefdom. Again, another kind of political system. So the same chart comes, same thing, except that in chiefdom we see formal leadership structures. So in tribe there is no formal leader. In tribe you don't have a formal leader. So let's say all those lineages unite. You don't have one person as a leader for the entire village. You may have a clan council. So when we saw that segmentary lineage, all of them unite to face an outsider. You can have a head called as a clan council of elders from each of the small lineages. That's it. But sometimes there is one person who is given the authority. He is called as chief. So in chiefdom you have formal structures, and then write the other features. What are the leadership features? Chiefs can be both hereditary as well as non-hereditary. And we saw the diagram, right? This chart. So write all these features. The population is larger, density is larger, societies are sedentary, and you also have centralized leadership. Chief can be hereditary or non-hereditary. There can be different levels of chiefs, and you can have, for example, chiefs. Whenever you write chief, two things must come in your answer. One is redistribution, because redistribution is associated often with chiefdoms. Second is chiefs also have something you can write mana. A lot of chiefs, how do they justify their position? How do they justify his position of authority? What is the legitimacy? Religious. Often they use something called as mana. That they have some mana, special powers in their blood which protect them, and so on. So write this too. And then chiefs don't collect tax, but chiefs collect what is called as tribute, voluntary payment. Why? Because chiefs have to support some small machinery for redistribution. And then when a chief begins to collect compulsory payments, maintain full-fledged officials, then we can say that a chiefdom is becoming state. That's it. In Indian history, you study chiefdom in which stage, in which part? In ancient Indian history, you come across chiefdom. Early Vedic age. In early Vedic age, you have chiefdom. But later Vedic age, you begin to see state formation. That's why in Rajan, in early Vedic age, is a chief. He doesn't have a lot of powers. He can't collect tax. He only collects a bhaga, not bali. He collects a voluntary payment. And his position is not hereditary and fixed. He has councils to hold him accountable. But by later Vedic age, Rajan becomes monarch, that is king. Even Sangam age is chiefdom. Why do we study Sangam age in South India? Because during Sangam period, while in North India by that period of time, state has formed in the form of the Mahajanapadas, and Mahajanapadas are not chiefdoms, they are states. 16 states, which gave rise to first empire, the Mauryan Empire, not Mauryan, Magadhan Empire, correct. That is the first empire. While in North India, we saw the emergence of state. In South India, we are still at the level of chiefdom. The Pandya, Chera, Chola that you hear about in Sangam period are all chiefdoms. The first state in South India is Shatavahanas, not the Sangam period. You have imperial Cholas to come back again. But the Cholas, Cheras, Pandyas you hear in Sangam age are all examples of chiefdom. That's why when they asked Sangam question one year, they asked highlight the political features of Sangam age. They wanted to write about chiefdom in history GS paper. It was asked in 2013 or 14. Discuss the political features of Sangam age. What they mean is discuss the features of chiefdom. But they have not used the word chiefdom. Next, 3A. Principles governing production, distribution, and exchange of simple societies. Here I don't find what's the confusion. Again, conceptual clarity is missing. First, thinkers. Nobody wrote, I think only one student wrote this, Karl Polanyi. Who studied this? Karl Polanyi. Which book? What is the book that he studied? Great Transformations. Karl Polanyi in his book, Great Transformations, classified economic systems into 3 types. What are they? He classified them into reciprocity, redistribution, and market exchange. That's it. You wrote, I think, kinship also. That is not there at all. Isn't it? You wrote kinship. Where did that come from? It is this only. Isn't it? Next, talk about reciprocity. When you write about reciprocity, another thinker must come. Who is the thinker who classified reciprocity? Marshall Sahlins. He classified reciprocity into 3. Generalized reciprocity, balanced reciprocity and negative reciprocity. Now write examples of each of these. One student got confused between these two. He wrote balanced for generalized, generalized for balanced. That's not right. That's why you should have, I said basics. This is all basic. Different headings, corresponding thinker with right example. What is an example of generalized reciprocity? Family. Sharing and caring in family is generalized reciprocity. You don't measure everything that is given and taken. Or meat sharing among the Kung. Meat sharing among the Kung. Balanced reciprocity. Famous example, the Kula exchange. Negative could be, for example, raiding, theft. And then talk about redistribution. Redistribution again, in redistribution you must use the word central authority. Goods and services flow to a central authority from where they again go backwards. And redistribution is associated often with, so whenever you say redistribution, you must use chiefdom or chief. Whenever you write chiefdom, you must always use the word redistribution. And after this, you describe why redistribution takes place. Here Marvin Harris proposed a theory. It is found in number and number. So Marvin Harris says that redistribution is found in those societies where the location is fixed and the production variety is fixed. The location is fixed and the production variety is fixed. But they have no mechanisms to distribute the produce. So imagine there are 4 villages which grow different crops. There are 4 villages which grow different crops. Now, how do we, let me see if we can.
The workshop has to go through a structured
Door closed.
Every week workshop has to be conducted. Every week workshop has to be conducted for the workshop.
Yes, so what does Marvin Harris say? Let's say you have 4 villages, A, B, C and D. And we have 1, 2, 3 and 4. Okay. So, they produce particular variety and it is fixed. B never produces 1, 3, 4. C never 1, 2, 4. So, now they need to make sure 1, 2, 3 and 4 are moving across the 4 places. And they don't have trade. So, what do? All of them give excess production to a central authority who then is given the job of distributing them. So, Marvin Harris proposes this as explanation for why this happens. And examples of redistribution. What are the examples of redistribution? Potlatch and pig feasts. These are both famous examples of redistribution. Potlatch and pig feasts. In fact, under reciprocity, I missed another idea. Or along with this, you can also say redistribution acts as a leveling device. Redistribution acts as a leveling device. What is a leveling device? It removes inequalities. Best example of this is potlatch. And you can also add what Marshall Salins also said. What Marshall Salins also said about reciprocity and kinship. He said kinship, the kind of reciprocity we use depends on the kinship distance. You can draw this diagram, can be your value addition, where you say for closest kin we follow generalized, for next we follow balanced, for non-kin we may follow negative reciprocity. These are all actually basics. So whenever you study, you must study in this fashion. Don't study in terms of irrelevant, unnecessary details. So if all of this are, when I look at an answer and I see these headings, this diagram, you are bound to naturally give, let's say if it is 20 marker, 13 or 14. But you have to search where did he write which point. If you make my job of evaluation difficult, then I'm bound to give you less marks. So from my experience in evaluation, I can tell you that one way in which a good script can be judged is it doesn't take time to correct. A good script never takes time to correct. In fact, if a script is taking time to correct, it's a sign that it's a poor script. Because students who write well, you can correct their script very quickly. Because everything is organized well. You don't have to search and decode things. So if you present neatly and the examiner is finishing fast, he gets a sign. This is a good script. Deserves. Even if in the first 10 questions he was developing impression, but the next 10 he's likely to give you +1 because by then he thinks this is a good script. So good scripts don't take time. Poor scripts take time to evaluate because good scripts have things in a structure. When I'm scanning, it's like I can clearly see content, keywords, diagrams. My eyesight catches everything readily. If you are not presenting in a way in which my eyesight can pick it up, then it's a poor script. Clear? So whenever I correct, a good student script doesn't take time. A poor script takes double the time.
I didn't catch that. Could you?
So even this did not catch a poor script. Anyway, next question is quite easy. 3B. Formalists and substantivist views on applicability. You just write first what are these views, who are formalists, who are substantivists, basics. Who are formalists? Yes. When you say formalist approach, which thinkers do we include? Herskowitz, Schneider, and Raymond Firth. These are three more relevant ones. Substantivist, most important is Karl Polanyi. Don't spell Karl Polanyi wrong. Next, Malinowski. Dalton, George Dalton. 6 people. And write the whole debate. It all begins with whether and another word that must come in your answer is neoclassical models. The whole debate is about whether neoclassical economic models can be applicable to simple societies. So what is the whole debate about? Whether or not neoclassical economic models can be applied to simple societies, because these models make some assumptions. Broadly, you can write 4 assumptions. Simple. First, they assume that man is selfish and man has unlimited wants, and they also believe that there is scarcity of resources, and fourth, they also propose that because of all of this, people tend to maximize profit maximization. So substantivists propose that these assumptions don't hold good for simple societies. Simple societies are different, hence these assumptions don't hold valid for them. So they propose that neoclassical models cannot be applied to simple societies and they must be studied differently. To this, they also add that in simple societies, what we see is that the economy is embedded. The economy is embedded in culture. So we have to study them differently. To that, formalists respond by saying, no, it is not true. Man is same everywhere, simple or complex. Maybe they say in complex societies, man is trying to maximize profit. Maybe in simple societies, he's trying to maximize friendship, goodwill. After all, he's trying to maximize something. So they say, you replace profit with utility. So formalists are saying, find the right variable. Replace this with utility and the job is done. So then substantivists say, what you're doing is a very crude thing. How can you just commodify friendship, love, happiness, these kind of things? You can't make them commodities. Hence they say that this is not true. So finally, this debate did not receive a formal closure, but over a period of time, substantivist view has been taken as a more relevant view. That's it. And now, again, here you can add contemporary relevance. In the light of sustainable development, in the light of using indigenous knowledge, we see that substantivist view is more relevant because they are giving importance to the uniqueness of simple economies. You can link it to sustainable development, responsible consumption. So that's how questions you have to, that's why in the last, whenever you study, there will be at least 4 rounds of revision. First 2 rounds, you're trying to get the basics right. Third round, you're trying to do value addition. In fourth round comes your uniqueness, where you interpret questions creatively, link it to different aspects of syllabus, other paper, GS papers, other optional paper, and arrive at some unique conclusion. That is where you get that extra 1 mark and where your script stands unique. Because after reading 50 scripts, it is very clear which material you read to write what. Because they all know what's in the market. So they will be able to immediately identify. But when one script has all the basics right, and on top of it, if it has some unique idea, it need not be a great idea, but the student has tried to apply the knowledge, that effort creates positivity, provided the basics are all in place. Now you can't say, I wrote great conclusion, when your basics are quite poor. Nobody really gives value. It's like a cake with good ice cream, but the substance is poor. So get the basics right, and then in the 4th round of reading, in the last 25 days, there your job must be to look for, how do I think this topic, how can I make it unique? Can I link it evolutionarily? Can I write something in terms of present relevance? Can I conclude to some GS idea? It may not be a terrific idea, but the effort itself makes it positive, right? Likewise, 3C, different types of magico-religious functionaries in simple society is very simple, right? There are 5. Students, I think, wrote only, you wrote 3. Another student wrote 4, but missed another, 5th. What are the 5? Shaman, priest, sorcerer, witch, medium. 5 types of magico-religious function. Of course, you will have more content for these 2. You won't have much for these, but you can write all the 5. And basics again. When you write shaman, what's the first thing that must be there? He's a part-time practitioner. What's a priest? He's a full-time practitioner. These are the basic words. When I look for an answer in shaman, 5 marker, 2 marker also, this word cannot be skipped because that is a whole essence. He is a full-time practitioner, he is a part-time practitioner. Next, you can add other details as per your space. Like shaman uses trances, he gets into, he's respected, and he may have spirits that guide him. He's also a medicine man in many societies. And he's also expert on local history, geography, geology, and genealogy. And in many societies, shamans have also led tribal revolts against outsiders. And examples of shamans in India, well, very relevant has studied shamans extensively among the Savaras. They have a very popular cult of shamanism. And right, priest, full-time practitioner, and a priest operates, shaman operates alone, but priest operates as part of an establishment. Because the priest belongs to the Catholic Church or the TTD or through the Shakti Mat and so on. Priest is never on his own. He belongs to a larger establishment, and he doesn't use trances, but he uses magical oral chanting or recitations to influence the supernatural. So talk about their nature, their position, how they communicate with the supernatural. Shaman is trying to communicate through trance, whereas priests believe that by reading some scripture, they can communicate with the supernatural. And priests also have high status. These two are feared because they do negative magic and they have low status. And between them, what is the difference? A sorcerer actually performs magic, whereas a witch doesn't perform magic, but it is believed that that person performed magic. So witches are those who have evil intentions attributed. The right word is attributed. They have evil intentions attributed to them. So they don't perform actually any magic. You can't find evidence of magic. It is believed that somebody makes allegation, this man or this woman is a witch. So what happens usually is in villages, you have animosity with one person, she has offended you or she has hurt you in some way. Let's say you try to cut some of her trees in the night, she found it and then publicly she embarrassed you. What do? You wait for your time. Somebody falls ill and now you say she's a witch. A couple of weeks ago I saw her perform witchcraft in that midnight near the tree. That's the reason why this fellow fell ill. Now the village believes this man, they brand her as a witch. So witches are, that's why we use the word branded. So you can't prove that a person did witchcraft, you can't disprove it because the whole thing is believed to have been done. Sorcery is not like that. You can actually find physical evidence. This performed did something. There is a drawing, there is a sacrifice, something is done. But in witchcraft, we don't find any such evidence. That is the fundamental difference between both of these. Then mediums, these are young women who are believed to have the capacity to predict or they go into possession trances and then they are believed to be able to predict future. That's it. They are also part-time practitioners. And then to this you can add which kind of practitioner is found in which kind of society. In general, if there is, in very simple societies, we only have shamans, in hunter-gatherers. But as society becomes complex, as it moves towards agriculture, as it develops inequalities, trade, we find the presence of all five and priest becomes more important. So connect them to the kind of society that may be, in which they may be present. We won't find shaman in complex agri societies. We find shamans mostly in hunting-gathering societies. Next, anthropological approaches to study religion. Very simple. It is quite long. This question, the challenge is length. And there is another challenge also. Most of you are writing evolution is fine, evolutionary approach. Psychological approach is also fine. Functional approach is poor. There are three approaches, right? Again, I'll just draw this whole structure in one page, and if you can expand on the structure, the answer will be terrific. Evolutionary, who do you write first? E.B. Tyler. Then next, no need to write Fraser. People wrote Fraser, why? Then Max Muller, Naturism. Then Auguste Comte for Fetishism. If you have the time and space, you can add Durkheim for Totemism. Psychological, two views. First, you write about Freud's theory. That is a very wild theory. So it is discarded. Then you have Neo-Freudian theory by Freud's students who believe that childhood experiences shape adult or childhood experiences shape adult thinking. So they believe that as children, people look up to their father as an all-knowing, omniscient person. When they grow up, they create God in the image of father. That is the Neo-Freudian psychological orientation. Then you have functional approach. Functional approach, most important person, please, is not Malinowski but Emil Durkheim. We don't appreciate Durkheim in anthropology. That's the problem. Because he comes only here. You think because he is coming only in a marginal topic, we think he's a marginal thinker. That's not so. Emil Durkheim is the most popular thinker in sociology. Durkheim and Marx are the two founding pillars for sociology. So in sociology option, Durkheim is taught for 1 week. In fact, the thinkers we study in anthropology are no match to him. Because nobody knows about them outside anthropology. But Durkheim is known outside sociology also. So Malinowski, Radcliffe Brown, they're all influenced by Durkheim's ideas. It is not like he is small and they are big. They are small and he is big. So you must first write Durkheim's theory on religion, because this is the most influential account on religion even till today. This is missing in most answers. So Durkheim must come first. Then you can write Malinowski, and if you have time, Radcliffe Brown, because Radcliffe Brown and Durkheim is the same thing. Radcliffe Brown just copied the ideas of Durkheim and did minor changes, that's all. But write Durkheim. And here Durkheim's idea is based on social. It's social. He says religion exists to help society unite and bond. Religion is like a lubricant that unites society. But Malinowski, in his functionalism, as you know, he focuses more on individual needs. That's it. Individual needs. What needs? Fear and anxiety. To overcome, like whenever you have an exam result due, you go to God, you go to temple, you pray, or you say, if I get rank, I'll come to Tirupati. That is relieving anxiety through religion. But for example, you also participate in a bhajan. What is that? Using religion to feel a sense of community. So Durkheim emphasizes on the community aspect. Malinowski's focus is more on the individual aspect. And in Durkheim, he makes a very provocative statement. You can use this. He says, what is religion? But religion is nothing but worship of society. He says, religion is not worship of God. Religion is worship of society. And in fact, he thinks that God is a totem for society. He thinks we have created God to represent in a symbolic way society. According to him, religion is all about society. So that should be the theory. Of course, I won't expect you to write this in anthropology, but at least Durkheim, his theory of community, that is reachable to us. This may be a little hitting it out of the park. So I won't expect you to get this right, but you can at least get the other basic things right. Next, types of social stratification. Here also I think students faced some difficulty. So this is very simple. I'll show you a chart that you can use. First, we have to define. I'll give you a framework. Maybe you can use the framework to write. So first, what is the framework? You define social stratification first. Second, what do you do? This should be your side headings. Second, what do you do? Types of social stratification. Next, benefits of social stratification. Third, criticism or negatives of stratification. That's all. If you have space, you can also write emergence of stratification. This is the framework for this answer. Now it is just about finding points for each. First, definition. This is the definition. What is social stratification? It refers to hierarchical division of society whereby its members are ranked according to their relative power, wealth or prestige. So what is stratification? Hierarchical division of a society whereby members are ranked according to their relative power, wealth or prestige. 3 words. What are those 3 words? Power, wealth and prestige. So that is the definition. Now, based on these 3 pillars, we can have different types of stratification. What are the different types of stratification? Let us elaborate this point. You can have 1, egalitarian societies. 2, you can have rank societies. 3, you can have class societies. Let us look at this table. So what happens in egalitarian societies? People are equal. There are no economic inequalities. There are no power inequalities, and there are also no prestige. Everybody is same on all the 3 dimensions. Think of these as X, Y, and Z axis. 3 dimensions. You study this in coordinate geometry, right? X, Y, and Z. So think of this as X, Y, and Z axis. So here, there are no differentiation on any of the axes. Then you have rank. And examples of this kind of egalitarian societies are hunter-gatherers like the Kung, the Australian Aborigines, or the Inuit. Now when you go to rank societies, here people don't have economic inequalities, people don't have power inequalities, but people have prestige. Chiefdom is an example of rank. In chiefdom societies, the chief is also not wealthy. He is like anybody else. Rank system is like class leader. In school you have class leader, right? So is that person like student, like any other student? He must come to class, do assignments, write exams, get marks. But where does he have special preference? Prestige. He is seen as a first student, or he is seen as a representative. Except for that, he is like student only. He is not like an MLA who does only leadership and doesn't do any other work. Not like that. That is rank system, where the chief is like anybody else, except that he has some special responsibility, that is redistribution, hence is getting some extra prestige. Like you will have school pupil leader, he is like any other student, but on a ceremonial occasion, he will wear a special jacket, he will speak first and all that. That is prestige. So that is rank society. Examples are many horticultural, like Trobriandus, they are examples of rank societies, chiefs. Then you have class societies where you have economic inequalities, you have power inequalities, and you also have prestige differences. So after prestige differences come, you then move to economic and political differences. And class is generally found in state kind of systems with agriculture. Rank is found in chiefdoms with horticultural or pastoral economies. That's it. And then within class societies, you can have 2 systems. Some societies have open systems, others have closed systems. Some have open systems, closed. What do we mean by open and closed? We mean by this, we mean mobility. In some systems, mobility is easy. They are called open systems. In others, mobility is very, very difficult. They are called closed. What is an example of closed? Caste. In caste, mobility is very, very difficult. Open system, class. In fact, if you want to be creative, for closed system, you can also add gender. Can you change gender? Can you change race? Ethnicity. These are also closed systems of stratification, because you can't change any of this. You can't change men's domination over women because gender is fixed. You can't change whites' domination over blacks. You can't change ethnic domination, for example, tribal versus non-tribal. So these are other closed systems of stratification. And then next, benefits. Are there any benefits of stratification? So when I see your answer, if I see these headings, that creates confidence that you know something. So your answer must carry headings like this and points below each. So what is next? Benefits. So under benefits, you again quote a thinker, because the benefits of stratification are largely discussed by structural functionalist approach. They have discussed how stratification may be beneficial to everybody. And here we quote 2 thinkers, Davis and Moore. We quote Davis and Moore. Davis and Moore, they proposed that many said stratification is bad, it is creating inequality and all that. But they said, how can you say it is bad? They said stratification is nothing but position, creating positions. Like in a company, you need a manager, you need workers, you need a professor as well as a lab attender. Is that wrong? Because positions help with specialization. Positions are a way of rewarding, appreciating talent, giving rewards. And positions also encourage specialization. They also encourage merit. They also encourage merit. So Davis and Moore think that stratification is good for society because we are now creating hierarchy for positions based on talent, reward and merit. Just like you have somebody passes the exam, you are giving them IAS, somebody writes group 2, you are giving them Tehsildar. Now can you say it is wrong? We are saying, see, there is a system, we are giving positions based on merit. Now can you say a Tehsildar and a collector both must be same? Only then we will have good society? Not really, because you need both. You need a manager at the top as well as the foot soldiers. So that is the view Davis and Moore take. But then, yes? Problem is if you can say only IAS officer's son should write the IAS exam, then it's a problem. But as long as you say anybody can write the exam, even a constable's son can write the exam, an SP's son can write the exam, then you cannot say it is wrong. Because after all, you are creating access to everybody. But based on the process result, you are awarding positions. So that is the approach, that is the point they are trying to make. Then another person called Melvin Tumin, he criticized stratification. Tumin gave a critique to this. Tumin is saying that, fine, you have stratification, but then is it really that those at the top must be paid so highly, that those at the top must be given such high rewards? He is questioning the extent of rewards given to those at the top. Second, he also says those power structure, yes, he also says power structure determines who gets higher positions. Determines who gets higher positions. Just like if your father is chief minister, you are more likely to think you will become the next chief minister, though it's a democratic system. We may call it democracy, but is it completely like that? Not really so. So why does only KTR wants to become the next chief minister of Telangana? Why does Revanth have to struggle so hard but still doesn't have the same chance? Because power structure also plays a role in determining structure. Second point is, the other point that they make is, yes, that stratification, the fact that there is stratification itself denies opportunities. They say stratification denies, because there is stratification, opportunities are not present equally to all because of the extent of inequality. So this is how you can write the answer on stratification, right? Next question is fairly standard. Fourth C, discuss the impact of industrialization, urbanization, feminism on the institution of family. I think this is fairly standard, just that most of you don't have an idea of thinkers for this topic. You are writing generally, very, very general answers. So whenever you write this topic, try to add some thinkers. For example, I generally analyze changes in family in 4 dimensions. First, how is the family structure changing? How is the family structure changing? Structurally, what is happening in family? We see the rise of nuclear family. Here you can use a thinker called Talcott Parsons, who says that we are increasingly experiencing nuclearization of family. That is what Talcott Parsons says. Even A.M. Shaw, you can use A.M. Shaw that we discussed earlier. A.M. Shaw also points out that joint families are disintegrating, but nuclear families are, doesn't mean that nuclear families are not rising. So what A.M. Shaw is telling is, let's say you have a family of two brothers. One brother gets a job in the city, another brother lives in the village doing agriculture. Now joint family broke into nuclear, but does it mean that the brother in the village will not depend on the brother in the city? If this village brother's son has to go and study in the college in city, where will he stay? In his uncle's house. Or if the parents in the village have a medical emergency, who will respond? Only the village brother? No, the city brother also responds. If they have an unmarried sister, will they not take responsibility collectively? So just because they are living in two different households, you cannot say joint family broke. They are living in two households. So they are not joint in household, but they are joint in orientation. They still decide together, they still help each other, they still take care of common things together. So there is joint cooperation, though there is not joint residence. That is what A.M. Shaw said in the Indian context, that joint families are disintegrating, yes, but doesn't mean they are becoming completely nuclear. This happened in the West, where once families broke and became nuclear, they are totally cut off from the rest of the kinship. But in India, though we all live in cities, you still maintain ties with your relatives in the villages, right? So that is what A.M. Shaw has said. Next is, the other trend is rise in monogamy. Rise in not just monogamy, but why is serial monogamy on the rise? Because divorces are becoming increasingly higher. And here you can quote Anthony Giddens. Anthony Giddens. Next is families' functions are changing. Functions are changing. Earlier, family used to perform all the functions. You didn't have school, you didn't have college, there was no factory, there was no TCS Wipro. So you were born into a family, you learned your skills in your family, you married in the family, and you probably worked with the family members. So all family was your world. But today, do we live like that? Not really. You go to a school where you get skilled, you go to college where you get higher education, you come to coaching center to get advanced skills, and probably you join a company to work or a government job to work. So you have different other agencies which play these different roles. It is no longer just family. So this trend is called as structural differentiation, where specialized institutions are performing the role of family. And again, this was given by Talcott Parsons. He says, we are experiencing a trend of structural differentiation. Along with this, where family does not perform all the functions. It's like earlier, same person is, it's like that movie, Kantara, same person is actor, director, producer, everything. That is family at one point of time. But today, it's not like that. Most often, you have one person who is producer, another is director, another is the actor, and so on. So, earlier family was like the single sole institution. But now, you have separate specialized institutions that are performing the older functions of family. Now, you can also add William Good. William Good, he also says that families are increasingly being cut off from extended kin groups. They are increasingly being cut off from extended kin groups. Along with this, you can also add many new forms of family are emerging. Many new forms of family are emerging? What are the new forms? You have, for example, same-sex marriages. You are having blended families or step families because of remarriage, where you have his children, her children, their children. Because you marry, get divorced. So man's children from first marriage, the wife's children from first marriage, and their children from second marriage. So you have a house where you have complex families. So they are called as blended or step families. Along with this, we are also seeing the rise of live-in relationships, old age marriages, where these children are encouraging their widowed parents to get married. We also have adopted families or foster families because of rise in IVF and surrogacy. And we are also seeing what is called as single parent families, because sometimes women are preferring to have children without being married. So you just have mother and children unit. Or sometimes husband may die or one of the parent can meet with early death. That can also lead to a single parent family. So these are the new forms of families that are emerging. And lastly, you can talk about rise in marital breakdown. Increasingly across the world, we are seeing breakdown of marriage and increasing rate of divorces. Here, you can quote Graham Allen. So Graham Allen observes that there is increasing rate of divorce across societies. And in fact, systems are making divorces easier. Divorce is being made easier these days. For example, earlier, courts used to ask somebody if they're getting divorced in India, why do you want to get divorced? You have to explain to the judge and convince him. The judge is an old man with a strong prejudice. Your divorce chances are very difficult. So you would go and check the judges before filing for divorce petition. But now they brought in something called as no fault divorce, which means if you file under this section, judge can't ask you why you want to get divorced. He can give you time, and if you are fine. Now I think recently they removed the time limit also. So you can go file the Tatkal divorce. So barriers are decreasing. So divorce is being made increasingly easier. And across the world, Europe has the highest. Within Europe, Luxembourg tops the divorce rate. Within India, highest divorce rate is seen in Bangalore. So this is how you can analyze changes in marriage and family. Right? Next, we'll quickly finish these last three. Fifth A, this is a more conceptual question. So I'll discuss fifth A, fifth B and C we'll do quickly. So many students ignore this fifth A. What are the factors responsible for bringing variation in residence? So first talk about different forms of residence. How many forms of residence do we have? Yes. We have patri, matri, and then yes, bilocal, avunculocal, and then we also have neolocal. We'll follow Ember and Ember scheme. This is a 5. And in Ember and Ember, you have a picture which gives a percentage of societies with each of these also. Patrilocal is dominant. This found is something like 75% of all societies are patrilocal. Now, why are we studying residence? What is our interest in studying residence? We are studying residence because we are interested in kinship. Now, what are the different kinds of descent we study in kinship? Unilineal, that is patrilineal descent, matrilineal descent, and then we also have bilineal ambilineal and bilateral. Now, our objective is actually to understand what factors determine or which societies are likely to have patry, which are likely to have matry, and so on. To understand descent, we have to first study, because descent has a correlation with residence. So, patrilineal descent is found in patrilocal societies. Matrilineal descent is found in matrilocal societies. Bilineal descent is found in bilocal societies. Ambilineal, likewise bilateral, is found in neolocal residence. So, the idea is that kinship is about how you are connected to people around you. That's the basic of kinship. Now, depending on who lives around you, you are more likely to choose which relatives are important to you. Yes or no? Because residence is a stronger parameter and residence is more likely to be fixed. So, if a society follows patrilocal residence, it is likely to be patrilineal. If it is following matrilocal residence, it is likely to be matrilineal. So, the idea is to understand what determines descent. To study that, they have realized that residence is a good predictor of descent. Now we want to know what determines residence. And in Ember and Ember, they give us two parameters. They say to understand descent, we have to study descent variation in terms of warfare and in terms of contribution to primary subsistence. Two variables. In fact, the whole discussion is summarized in this one single diagram, very, very elegantly. This is the most beautiful picture in entire Ember and Ember book. They make a very simple argument. They say, whether a society is patrilocal or matrilocal is decided by the kind of warfare that is present. Let's say warfare is now of two types. One kind of warfare is internal warfare. Another kind of warfare is, for example, what is going on in Afghanistan or Sudan is internal warfare. What was going on in Syria, or what is going on, for example, between Russia and Ukraine is external, between two units, two countries, two tribes, two villages, that is external. In the same country, like civil war, then it is called internal. So, if the warfare is internal, that is in the same tribe, two villages are attacking each other. In internal warfare, what happens is that neighbors are in conflict. Then what happens? The attack is sudden. The neighboring village can attack you in the middle of the night with very short notice. When the attack is sudden, who are your defendants? Men or women in any given village? Generally men, because men are physically stronger, so they constitute the fighting force. So men have to be quickly mobilized to defend from an attack, which means men who are related must reside together. So in societies with internal warfare, we see patrilocality. If the warfare is external, when let's say a neighboring kingdom is marching against you, now you know they are coming, somebody has seen them coming towards you already, there is time for preparation, you can attack and face them. So when the warfare is external, there is no need for all the males to be localized, because you can quickly mobilize. There is no need for quick mobilization because there is adequate time for preparation. So when the warfare is external, then contribution to primary subsistence determines whether somebody is patrilocal or matrilocal. When there is external warfare, if men contribute more to economy, then you are likely to be patrilocal. But you are a horticultural society where women contribute more to the economy, then you are likely to be matrilocal. So first criteria is warfare. If it is internal warfare, definitely patrilocal. If it is external warfare, then it depends on second criteria, that is contribution to primary subsistence. Here, with external warfare and you have men contributing more, patrilocal. External warfare, but women contributing more, then you have matrilocal residence. This is a very, very interesting theory proposed by Ember and Ember from their original research. In fact, this is a previous year question in 2010 or 11. They didn't ask this question in recent years, but given that they asked last year the uniqueness of matrilineal in opposition to patrilineal, this is actually a similar question. Last year they asked one question: how is matrilineal different from patrilineal? Or in matrilineal, how do they solve the internal structural issue? This question is quite similar to that question. So then, now just look at this diagram. Purely external war, first if you have internal warfare, then what is the most likely? Patrilocal. But if you have purely external warfare plus women do more, then matri. What if men do more, then it is patri. Now what kind of societies are likely to have bilocal residence? Bilocal is found in societies where there has been depopulation. What is the meaning of depopulation? Like COVID, pandemic or natural disaster. Let's say there's a big disaster and it killed vast sections of population. Now you can't say I'm patrilocal, I live with my relatives, but if you're dead, all of them are dead, what will you do? Let's say the man's side has all died in a big disaster. Does it make sense to live on the man's side? Your wife's relatives are surviving. Now what do? You live with them. So in depopulation, you just go and live with whoever is available. You can't say I live only with my wife's side or only with my husband's side. That you can't no longer follow. So when there is depopulation, societies follow bilocal residence. That is, they choose which side is more practical. Where do you find neolocal residence? Societies like ours, where there is high extent of commercialization. There is also avunculocal residence. This is more complex. I would suggest you skip it for now, because this itself must have sounded complex enough. For avunculocal, the theory is slightly a little more complex. So avunculocal, you can read from Ember and Ember or drop it if you can't, because presenting this whole thing is very difficult in exam. That's why just present patrilocal, matrilocal, bilocal, neolocal, it is enough. If you can present this much, it's a big feat. If you add avunculocal, it becomes slightly more complex. That's why I'm not stepping into avunculocal at this stage. If you are still interested, you can come back and meet me personally. I'll tell you what happens here, or you can read from Ember and Ember how avunculocal works. But for now, just confine to this 1, 2, 3, 4. So matri is found in external warfare with women doing more. Patri is found in 1, internal warfare, or 2, external warfare with men doing more. Bilocal is found where there is depopulation, and neolocal is found where there is commercialization. That is quite simple. Just write this and that solves your question. Next, discuss social control in simple societies. Very, very easy. Just define what is social control. What is social control? Cultural means to encourage conformity to norms and values and thereby maintain social relations and perpetuate culture. Simple. That is social control. Now we have 2 mechanisms. One is internal mechanisms like guilt. Everybody feels, why don't you steal from your parents? You can do that and you can easily escape. But why don't you do that? Not because there is a law against it or there is CCTV camera in your home. You just don't feel good about yourself, isn't it? Or why don't you cheat your friends who are close to you? Why don't you lie to them frequently? Not because they'll catch you, but you don't feel good about yourself. That is internalized mechanisms like guilt. It's an emotional response that you feel the moment you do something wrong. Now next, but all times this is not enough. This is good to some extent. But a lot of times, let's say tomorrow you have an assignment submission date. You didn't do anything till now. Now what do? You can't say, I'll follow honor code and I won't submit. You will copy your friend's assignment. So which means that it is not just enough to believe people's emotions only. Sometimes pressure can get the better of your emotions. So which means you also need external mechanisms. These are called as sanctions. Every society uses both internal emotional responses like guilt or external ones called sanctions. Sanctions can be positive like awards and rewards, or they can be negative like punishments or naming and shaming. This is one way to understand social control. But more often, we can also understand social control in terms of peaceful mechanisms as well as violent mechanisms. Many societies have peaceful ways to maintain order and resolve conflict. What are the peaceful mechanisms? Two people don't get along well. We avoid. Don't turn into each other. You are asked to shift your houses to different ends of the village. Or community action. They collectively punish somebody. Or negotiation and mediation. Sometimes you can have ritual conciliation where you swear before the god. Or you offer apology to the person who you wronged. Or oaths and ordeals. Ordeals, you know, like scalding, putting water into a boiling pot. Putting hand into boiling pot, and if you are unhurt, apparently you are not guilty. Or running on hot coals. They are all ordeals. Then you have adjudication courts and codified law. That is, a council of elders sits and adjudicates a dispute. So these are all peaceful mechanisms. When peaceful mechanisms fail, then you can have individual violence, like two people fight each other. Or feuding, where two groups are fighting, like in Rayalaseema, that is feuding. Or raiding, where you go and attack somebody in the night and you steal and burn the village. They come back and do it to you sometime later. That is called raiding. Or large-scale confrontation and warfare. This is like what you see between two nation states. So these are different mechanisms to handle social control. Last question is also easy. In fact, this question also has a very beautiful structure, just that quite often you miss it. Now, question is about defining marriage. There are 4 definitions of marriage. You can, depending on the question's weightage, you can write all 4 or at least 2. First 2 definitions are called early definitions by Westermarck and Murdoch. Then there's Kathleen Gauss definition and William Stephens. These 2 are called modern definitions. So how many definitions? 4. Westermarck. Now don't go to notes and queries and all this. That is too outdated. Just stick to Westermarck, Murdoch, which are old definitions, and now new definitions by Kathleen Gauss and William Stephens. If you can't write all 4, at least write William Stephens, because this is the most accurate definition of marriage. But even this, the whole thing in marriage definition is, the issue is, can we find a universal definition for marriage? That was the issue. And then initially anthropologists tried to give one definition which includes every society found in the world. And in each society definition, they found that you could not fit everybody. Finally, William Stephens said, why should you include everybody, even the one who has exceptional practices like Nayars? Instead, give a definition which includes the vast majority, not just majority, but the vast majority, like 90% should be covered. Whoever you can't cover in this vast definition, you list them as exceptions. So he gives a broad definition and then says there are some kinds of marriages which may not fit in the definition. That is, for example, Nayars, that Talikattu Kalyanam and Sambandham relationships, that's an exception. Or same-sex marriages is an exception. Single-parent families or concubinages is an exception. So instead of trying to aim for one definition to control everybody, like the one ring in Lord of the Rings for everybody, why should you have one definition for everybody? Instead, have a definition that you can reasonably work with. And then you list out those rare marriages found in those minor 1%, 2% cases. So list Stephens' definition and list out the exceptions. That is the first part. Second is various types of marriages. Very simple. The typology of marriage is based on how many you marry. Students get confused between marriage types. There are 3 questions in marriage chapter which are quite distinct. First, marriage laws. Second, marriage types. Third, 8 ways of acquiring mate in simple societies. These are 3 different things. Don't confuse the content. Marriage laws means prescriptive, proscriptive and preferential. Prescriptive, proscriptive, and preferential. Here you get incest taboo, endogamy, exogamy, levirate, sororate, cousin marriages. Types of marriage. Types is based on how many you can marry. Just understand typology based on one simple criteria. How many? So if you marry one, monogamy, two or more, depending on men or women, it is polygyny or polyandry, then you have group marriage, polygynandry. Then 8 ways of acquiring mate. This is different. In India, you have marriage by allotment, marriage by capture, marriage by negotiation, marriage by service, and so on. Those are 8 ways. Both are different. Here the question is about types. You must write each of these, give their definition, and take definition for each of these from Ember and Ember, please. Ember and Ember has the best definitions for each of this. For example, monogamy means where a man is married to another person at a given time. What is monogamy? One person is married to another person at a given time. So monogamy can be of 2 types. Serial monogamy, non-serial. And draw diagrams to show each. Monogamy is just this. Or it can be this, provided this person dies. Like this. So draw a diagram. Next, polygamy. Polygyny. Define polygyny. Polygyny is where a man is married to more than one woman at the same time. The word at the same time should be given. Because in serial monogamy also you are married to multiple persons, but not at the same time. So, and then types, sororal, non-sororal, and then most often draw diagrams for each. And most often students don't write this. In which societies do you find polygyny? See, this is the USP of anthropology. Anthropology is 2 things: describing varieties. But it is not just describing variety, it is also explaining variety. Why do you have different kinds of functionaries like shaman, priest or medium? Why do you have different kinds of marriage? Which marriage is found in which society? Which functionary is found in which society? So explaining the variation is a USP of anthro. Today if you don't write explanation, you don't get good marks. This is the heart and core of anthropology. So where do you find polygyny? Societies where there is long postpartum sex taboo, where you have excess of women over men, where men marry at an older age than women, or where the degree of disease is too high that women prefer to be married to this healthy man, even if it is second or third wife, than being married to unhealthy person as a first exclusive wife. Then polyandry. Polyandry is rare. Again 2 types, fraternal, non-fraternal. Draw diagrams of both. And where is it found? It is found where there is shortage of women, like in Todas where they practice female feticide. Or it is also a response to limited resources. In resource scarcity, brothers share a wife just like brothers share a house or a plot of land or like a vehicle, like a bike or a car. So that is polyandry, and this, for this example is Casas or Jones or Bauer. For this you have Toda. There is one more society in Nepal called the Nimba. They are also an example of polyandry. That's it. So please take these inputs seriously and make sure the easiest thing to do is structure. Content will take time, but structure is like a habit. Content is something you pick up over time, but developing that structural approach to writing is the most important part. So whenever you look at an answer, first think of a structure or framework. Then content naturally gets adopted. Alright, so we'll close this session here, and I hope maybe by next session, next test, we'll see some improvement in your scripts. And other basics which I didn't discuss are finished paper. No matter how much preparation you have, what is the time pressure, you must finish the paper. Don't come out without finishing it. Because if you do that, you are admitting defeat in the exam hall itself. Because The most misconception you have is that toppers are writing extraordinarily well. That is not so. So I've met all of them in the academy last time. First rank to 10th, everybody. They are like, if you talk to them, they're like most of you. Just that they have understood the knack of cracking the exam. That's it. They're not like falling from sky or anything. In fact, I find some students here smarter than some of them. So, but then what they've understood is how to crack the exam. They've understood the game. That's it. Which you can also do, provided you give it time. So, even those who get first rank, toppers also, don't answer all 20 extraordinarily well. There are, in every paper, like take GS paper, out of 14 questions you can actually prepare for. If you do really good preparation based on PYQ, syllabus, 14 you can really prepare very well. So a topper writes 14 questions where he is getting at least 6 on 10, 6 or 7 on 10. An average student who doesn't get interview call writes something like 6 questions at that level. Somebody who gets just interview call writes something like 8 to 9 questions at that level. But a topper writes additional 5 questions where he gets probably 3 marks extra than you. 5 into 3 is 15. Now the next 6 questions fall in 2 categories. 3 of these questions are analytical, where anybody has to analyze. Nobody can prepare and come. You would respond to the situation. There again, those who are toppers have framework in mind. And they generate a framework and write a reasonable answer. So there also, they end up getting these 3, they may get +2. Whereas you write generally, with no headings, broad paragraphs, no organization, nothing. Then there are other 3 questions which are unexpected. This nobody expects. McBride Commission, some random committee. Nobody can really, like last year they asked about cellulose, plant cellulose. These are bouncers to everybody including a topper, but then they don't get intimidated. They still write, even for these 3, they write some 1-page answer with some structure and come. They realize that these 3 are difficult for everybody. Which means, in a question on federalism, to get extra 2 marks, you have to work really hard. Because everybody will write good answer. But a question on plant cellulose, everybody are shocked at it first. So there, even average answer fetches you above average marks. Nobody knows the question. So some people don't write the question. They get right away 0. Others just scribble something randomly and come. They get 1 mark. But a topper writes 3 headings with 2 points under each heading, writes 6 points and comes with intro conclusion. He gets, let's say, 3 marks. He's gotten +2. Even if he got 3 only out of 10, but what matters is this, right? Not absolute marks. So they write every question. Questions where you don't feel like writing also, they write something and come. And they're seeing, if you get 0, they want to get at least 2. So all of this adds up across 7 papers, this attitude. Because what you're referring to is an attitude. And it reflects in all the papers. So 7 papers, these small marks finally add up to give you that big difference. Right? So finish the entire paper and every question, try to write in a framework and make sure the script looks neat. Even if your writing is not great, you can still make the script look neat. Neatness is different from great writing. And make sure you space well. You can use spacing and legibility to make your script look neat even if your writing is average. Because writing we can't change, but spacing and legibility we can change. Right? So take these inputs, I hope they help you in improving in your next test. Alright, so we'll close this here.